And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a game that draws mechanics from several other games, or copies them, you might say. That game is Copycat by Friedmann Friese, designer of Power Grid and First Sparks and several other games. And this one is going to be kind of different from some of those, but in some ways kind of the same. The game has a lot of different mechanics, from deck building to worker placement, but real quick before I get into it too much, why don't we just open up this box and see what's inside of it. We'll see how the game plays, and then we'll come back here and we'll get my final opinions on Copycat. So here you can see the components of Copycat set out for a 4-player game. The reason I'm showing 4 players is simply because there's some extra cards that included in the 4-player game. So there's cards for 4 players and there's cards for 3 to 4 players that add more action spaces on the board to make sure there's enough action spaces for everyone. Now this game is going to be a combination of several different games. Dominion, Agricola, and several different other concepts, but mostly deck building and worker placement worked into one. Each player is going to have a deck of cards that starts with 7 money cards that look like this, and 3 victory point cards that look like this. These are not as useless as they are in Dominion. They will provide you points throughout the game, so they're not terrible to have in your hand. In addition, each player is going to start with a marker on the turn order track, a marker on the score track, and 3 workers that they have in their supply, as well as a supply of workers that they can draw from during the game. But when you get workers, they're not for the rest of the game, they're only for that turn. So if you get more workers, they're temporary until the end of your turn. Now the game is going to work as follows. At the start of each round, you're going to reveal one of these cards, which is going to be a new action. And these actions are going to be worker placement actions. When you place a worker there, you will get the benefit of it, either immediately for all of the blue ones, or later in the turn for the goldish, the greenish, and then the grays, you can choose when to take them at your benefit, either immediately or later if you want to. And that's how those are going to work. Now each player at the start of their turn is going to shuffle their deck of cards, and they're going to draw 5 cards from the top of their deck. And they're going to look at them and they're going to see, okay, I got 3 money cards and I got 2 victory point cards. Also, each card is going to have a number at the top left-hand corner. You'll see this one here is 13, this one's 12, and that one's 18. And then the 2 victory point cards are 11 and 10. So, the first thing that's going to happen on these turns is everybody's going to take one of their cards from their hand and they're going to use it as a turn order bid. They want to use a higher card if they want to go first, so 18, for example, would allow them to go first, most likely, as it's the highest card in the starting deck. But they're going to choose a card from their hand, and the number in the top left corner is their card that they're bidding for turn order. And the higher or the better the card, the higher the number will likely be. So, you can bid one of these for turn order, but you're going to lose that card from your hand for the rest of that turn. You won't get to keep it in your hand. It will be useless for the turn. So, maybe you want to bid a smaller one so that you get to keep your good cards. The victory point cards could go away and you can keep a better one. Or maybe you want to go earlier and you use one of your higher point cards. Let's say this player uses the 18. Once everyone has chosen a card, you're going to flip them all over, and whoever had the highest number will go first, the lowest number will go last, and you'll rank them appropriately in between. Ties reversing the order of the 2 players that are tied. After this, you're going to move into the worker placement portion of the game, and each player starts with 3 workers and can get more from various cards that you'll buy from this resource area out here after all of the worker placement is done. But each of these spaces on the board does something different, or some of them do something different. So you'll see that some of the blue ones here allow you to draw a card, and if you place a worker on here, you would lay it down and you would draw a card from your deck and add that to your hand. Now I have an extra money. Some of the other places here, this one gets you a money at the end of the turn. This one lets you buy something. Unlike Dominion, you are not automatically allocated a buy. So you have to take an action that will get you a buy in order to buy something from this area down here, which will be done in turn order, as you can see over here. So these are going to provide you money. These are going to provide you buys along with these. These will provide you victory points at the end of the turn. These cards here are going to provide you with a card draw, like this one over here. But this one here allows you to discard cards from your hand up to twice in order to draw more cards. This one here will duplicate the effects of a card, be it a money card or later a get a worker card or any other card. You can duplicate the effects of the card and get either more money or more workers or whatever it may be. And then this spot here is going to allow you to destroy a card from the game in order to get a money 1 time. So this is a way to thin your deck. And then you have +2 draws, and the rest of these are going to basically be better cards of these ones over here, better actions. So as the game goes on, you'll reveal more actions that get better. Once everyone has placed their workers and taken their actions, be it get more money or get more cards or get victory points, whatever that might be, they're going to go on to the buy phase. And the buy phase is going to allow you to buy cards from this area down here. Now you'll see the costs printed on the cards. This one's worth 3, 3, or cost 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 4. However, only the first several cards, or the first 4, don't have any modifier. So these ones are face value for the cost. But these next ones here are going to cost you extra. So you'll see this one costs +1, +1, +1, and the further one down costs +2. When you buy a card, it's going to go to your discard pile, and it'll become in your deck later. So you're going to shuffle your discard pile when you run out of a deck, and it will get added in, and you'll have better cards later on. However, if you buy any card that's to the right of this toilet paper here, which is called the high school diploma, that card, as well as all of the toilet papers to the left, get added to your discard pile. So these are basically the victory point cards from Dominion. They're worthless, and they're going to come up later, and you're going to want to destroy them to get money or use them for something else to get money. So as I said, everyone will place all of their workers, and these workers will get distributed around the area. Let's just place them to show, for example. Everyone at the beginning of the game will have 3 workers, and they'll place them out something like this. So once you're done with that, everyone takes their buys appropriately in order, and the cards here will be removed. Players will spend their money, which is just temporary money, of course. They'll spend this money, and they will be removed from the board. So maybe somebody buys this one, and somebody buys this one, which comes with the toilet paper. And somebody buys this repeat card, or maybe they buy this money card. Nonetheless, after that, you're going to slide all of the remaining cards down. So all of these remaining cards will get slid. They'll come out something like this. First thing, before you slid them, though, you would remove some cards. So you'll see here that in a 2-player game, these 3 cards, if they're still here, would be removed from the game. In a 2- and 3-player game, these 2 would be removed. And in a 2- through 4-player game, this card is removed. So the more players, the less cards are automatically removed from the game. And then you would refill this area, which will have more cards available for the next round, and they're going to get better. So this one's +2 workers. Or you'll see this one, if you have it in your hand, is worth 3 victory points at the end of the turn. That's something I didn't mention, is when you're resolving your buy, you can also play all of your victory point cards, but we'll cover that shortly. This one is draw 2 cards, and this one here is spending money to draw cards, which is basically one of the only ways to spend money during your turn. Now, as I said, after you've done all of your buys, you're going to resolve victory points. And you're going to get victory points for each of your workers that's on a victory point space on the board, as well as for any of these victory point cards that you have in your hand. So if I had this card left over in my hand and I hadn't used it for the money, I could play it for 2 victory points. And the same goes true for, this one here. If you would pick this up for 5 money later and you played it from your hand at the end of a round, it'd be worth 3 victory points. Or maybe you double it and it's worth 6 victory points using this action on the board. Either way, you're going to reseed everything, you're going to score your victory points, and then before you remove your workers from the board, you're going to place one of these green chips on each of the actions that did not have someone take it. So you'll see these 3 spaces here did not have someone take the action. At this point, you're going to remove all of your workers from the board and give them back to the appropriate players, who will then get ready to take another turn. In getting ready, they will, of course, take their card that they used for their bid, as well as any of the cards that they used during their turn, put them in their discard pile, and they will go ahead and draw on the next 5 cards from their deck in order to have a new hand, starting all over with another cycle of bidding. In addition, they're going to reveal the next action card. In this case, it is another copy a card thing. And that will be another available action for the rest of the game. Now, as you go on, you're going to get cards that, of course, give you more workers, which will give you workers temporarily for that turn. You can play them basically at any point during your turn of worker placement in order to get more workers. The same thing is true for drawing more cards. You'll be able to build an engine to draw more cards to get more money or get more workers or get more victory points or whatever it may be. But you're basically going to be going on trying to score points by placing people out here, taking the actions that get you victory points, or buying the cards that will get you victory points, or whatever the case may be. If you place on a position that has one of these chips, you will, of course, get the chips at the end of the round, which count as victory points for that as well. So as actions don't get taken, they're going to build up and become better and better, providing victory points as well as whatever's placed printed on the space. As you go through the game, the cards that come out get better and better. So you'll see here, towards the end, you're going to have place a worker twice, or basically when you place a worker, place 2 workers. Or this one is worth 10 victory points if you play it from your hand. You'll have one card that just straight out copies another card. But you're also going to have some of those toilet papers that you have to get if you want to buy the better cards that are further down the line here. At the end of the game, you're going to have 4 cards in a 4-player game, 3 in a 3-player game, 2 in a 2-player game that are called PhDs, or doctorates. And these cards are basically free to buy unless there's any modified costs printed on the board. But for each money that you have left over, you're going to get a victory point when you buy them. These don't go in your deck, they get set aside. And basically, they score points once and they're useless for the rest of the game. But if all 4 of them are bought, the game will end. The game can also end if you go through all 9 rounds here. So if you go through, all 5 of these rounds. So when you reveal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cards, you're going to be done with the game, no matter what at the end of that round. And you're going to score victory points, basically how you would normally score victory points, by playing cards from your hands. If you had any of those PhDs that you bought, you're going to get the points for those. And basically for anywhere you placed on the board throughout the game, be it the victory point spots that get better and better as you go on. Some of these are going to be worth, for example, 5 victory points. And whoever manages to get the most points by best managing their worker placement, their buying and kind of thinning of their deck, playing victory points out, getting the PhDs, will be the winner. Well, there you have it. That is Copycat. I got this game pretty recently because I played it at a convention and enjoyed it so much. So it wasn't real surprising to me when I played it at home, and got to play it a little bit more, that I ended up liking it just as much. The game steals, as you can tell, or borrows, I should say, from several games. You have Dominion, you have Agricola with the flipping of the cards, or Factory Manager, if you want to look that way, with the flipping of the cards to get more actions. You have Worker Placement, which is borrowed from, several worker placement games out there. And then you have that Shifting Market, and I know there's a game with something similar to that. I'm sure there's several, but where the cards kind of shift and get better as the game goes on. So you have all of these different mechanics kind of cobbled together into one game, and you'd think, okay, well, it's probably not going to turn out to be that great, but it all works together very well. The use of the actions to kind of modify the buy phase, for the cards to modify getting more workers, all is very smooth. It's very easy to learn if you're familiar with all of these different mechanics. And it all just works very well together. So all in all, I'd say it's a great game. It scales pretty well from 2 up to 4. There's a lot going on, but not so much that you can't manage it, and it just kind of feels unique, even though it's got a lot of these borrowed parts. So if that sounds interesting to you, check out Copycat from Rio Grande Games.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.